I'm Lisa Bilyeu and I went from housewife to co-founding the billion-dollar company Quest Nutrition and now president of Impact Theory. Our mission with this show is to empower you and all women to recognize you really can become the hero of your own life. Welcome to Women of Impact.
Speaking and performing in public is the number one fear in us humans. That's right, people fear being judged, getting embarrassed and failing in public to be more scary than death. Yes, death. Just let that sink in for a second. We are more worried about our egos and confidence being damaged than ceasing to exist on this planet. Now imagine competing in the Olympics. You've been physically straining your body for 3 months straight to get to this point. You're so run down, you're actually sick. It's your final performance of the entire event, so it's your last chance to take home the gold for your country. And hundreds of millions of eyeballs are on you. I'm getting anxiety just painting that picture. Well, today's Woman of Impact found herself in that exact situation. Oh, and I failed to actually mention, she was 16 at the time. Now, despite all of that working against her, through sheer drive and resilience, she got on that balance beam, blew the judges away, and I'm sure you know, took the gold. But as we all know, and as cheesy as it may still sound, but it's true, what goes up must always come down. And after suffering a serious injury weeks before the 2012 Olympic trials, she was forced to back out and as a result, retire from the sport completely. But the badass that she is, she didn't let this define her. She didn't let her life's work become her sole identity. So what did she do? Well, she did what she does best. She handspringed and split leaped her way to being the youngest contestant to take home the trophy on Dancing with the Stars. Now a New York Times best-selling author with appearances on Celebrity Apprentice, Adventure Capitalist on CNBC, The Tonight Show, The Late Show, Ellen and Oprah, as well as having close to 83 million views on her YouTube channel. Guys, it's just so incredible to see how this woman is writing her own story. So please, help me in welcoming the founder of Fit Life, whose tagline is real, not perfect. The woman who co-founded The Body Department, a site dedicated to providing an outlet where people can talk about body image, wellness, and fitness in a healthy way. The woman who not only has a gold medal, but even more impressively, has a heart of gold. The wondrous Shawn Johnson East.
Thank you. That was quite the intro. Oh my gosh.
Seeing what you've done in the Olympics was so incredible, and I'm sure most people watching or hearing this has seen that incredible moment. But I had no idea what happened leading up to it. So from the outside you look and you're like, oh, she nailed it. Like gold medal, amazing. Yeah. And then I come to find out how sick you were, what you had been through. Mm-hmm. So take me through the mindset of going through that and still performing to the elite level that you did.
Oh my goodness. So for most athletes, you usually compete and train for a couple weeks at a time. You take a week off, you kind of let your body rest, your mind rest, you recoup, you go back out. Well, with the Olympics, Olympic trials, Olympic selection for the United States team, I had been competing and training every single day for over 3 months straight. And this was over 8 to 9 hours every day with hardly any sleep. We would compete until like midnight or 1 a.m., get 4 or 5 hours sleep and have to do it again. And this was the very last competition on the last day, and my body was just done. My mind was done. And I went into the warm-up just kind of like out of it. I just wanted to lay on the couch. I wanted to watch TV. I wanted to eat a cheeseburger. I could have cared less about the Olympics. I kind of took a deep breath, said a prayer, and I just said, you know what? This is your last chance to show the world the 16 years of dedication and work and blood, sweat, and tears you've put into this. You can't give it up. My body went into like autopilot. It did everything for me. I didn't even think through anything. And when I landed my dismount and finished the routine, I remember looking at the judges, and one of the judges kind of like gave me a nod, like, good job. And my coach gave me a huge hug. I looked up at my parents in the stands. They were bawling. And I saw number 1 by my name on the scoreboard. And I was like, I did it.
Well, it reminded me of, so there's a quote that I love by Bruce Lee. And he says, he doesn't think kick, he just kicks. And that's how he's gotten to be as good as he is. To forget that the mind is even there and your body just reacts. Do you think that that's what happened to you, that your mind had been so like worn down that the best thing that probably could have happened was that you were that tired that your body just took over?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason why elite athletes train not only their mind, but their body and vice versa. I mean, we put in thousands of hours of conditioning and going through the repetitions, but we also put in thousands of hours of working our mind, trying to get focused and learn how to control nerves and learning how to control the negativity and keep it out of your mind, those doubts and fears. And on that last day, the fear and doubt was definitely there, but I think because I was so tired and I was so exhausted, my mind just stopped working. And thankfully, because I put in, as an elite athlete, those thousands of hours of kind of body work, my body was just like, you know what, we got this time. Like, mind, just go away and we'll do it for you. And it worked. But I think it was just a clear indication of if you put in the hours, it'll pay off at some point.
Yeah. So talk to me about the tactics that they had taught you to steer off the fear and the negativity.
Okay, so my coach was a firm believer, probably like the biggest believer in mental training that I had ever come across in a career. I would go to practice every day and work 4 or 5 hours, and he would say, okay, this is body training, but when you go home, it'll be mind training. And at the end of my practice, he would say, here's your assignments when you go home. And he'd say, I want you to picture yourself, like close your eyes, lay in bed. Picture yourself walking into the arena, the competition, that whatever one it is you're training for, so the Olympics. He said, I want you to hear what the audience sounds like. I want you to see and feel what the beam feels like. And picture every move you will make and do it 20 times in a row perfectly. So if you make a mistake or you picture yourself making a mistake, you have to start over. Like you go back to zero. Oh. And every night when I would go home and he'd say, I want you to picture the Olympic arena during preliminary competition in your beam routine. Picture it 20 times in a row. It's really difficult, and it would take me hours.
Why do you think it's difficult?
I think it's hard because just by nature, I think because of insecurities and fears and doubts as a human being, we naturally picture ourselves failing. I think it's just like almost like the negativity coming in and seeping into your subconscious, because you're always like, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? And my coach was a believer that if you picture it, it will happen. And doing these repetitions mentally, I would get to a point where I could picture 200, 500 routines back to back perfect. And it just kind of strengthens your mind in a way where if you can't let even the image of yourself making a mistake come into your brain, your body shouldn't be able to respond to it.
Do you still use that now in other things that you do?
I try to. If I ever find myself in a situation where I'm getting nervous, I'll be like, okay, picture yourself doing it the right way. And it's all muscle memory. I mean, there's even scientific proof that shows if you picture anything, your body's actually doing it just on a smaller scale. So you have to teach your body to do things the right way, even when you're out of practice in picturing yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to do that as an adult. You were 16 years old.
Yeah.
Like, for people at home, like, guys, do you remember what it's like at 16? I mean, it's so scary. Like, the biggest thing that I had to deal with, I think, was, like, you know, getting on a bus and maybe, like, getting picked on or something like that at 16. But, like, you're in front of hundreds of millions of people. So all this practice that you've got, like, I get the importance of it. And like, on the day, though, how do you just not break?
I honestly have no idea, because like being 27 years old now, I feel like I could never do it.
Oh, okay.
Like,
talk to me about that.
Oh my gosh. There was something beautiful about being 16, because as a kid, you are innocently naive. You don't have all the life distractions. You're not capable of thinking of all the repercussions that can come of such a monumental event. And you can't even like comprehend the magnitude of the situation. But as an adult, you can. And the weight of that pressure can sit in a different manner as an adult. As a kid, my biggest fear was disappointing my family. And that is a huge weight to bear, but it's not as big as everything that could probably come with it. And so as a 16-year-old, I was conditioned and trained to deal with my performance in that arena at that time. And I had a coach who saw me as a child, who was able to say, oh, she's getting a little distracted. Let me like guide her back this way.
Yeah.
But if you have an adult mindset at 16, or if you have an adult mindset on an Olympic stage, you have to deal with so much more. And I'm glad I didn't have to do that.
Yeah, it actually brings me to a quote that you said that I found fascinating and so true. In gymnastics, you see a trend. The older you get, the more you start visualizing. This can go very wrong. In a child, you see the opposite.
As kids, we are blindly fearless. We don't picture things going wrong. We don't have that risk assessment yet. We just do it. And in gymnastics, people are always like, why are gymnasts so young? And I mean, just a blatant fact, we're girls, and the more aerodynamic you are as a prepubescent child, you physiologically can just flip better. But you also have a mindset that is more fearless. You flip on a 4-inch beam 4.5 feet off the ground, and you don't even think twice.
Of the repercussions of how serious you could really hurt yourself.
I kind of noticed a shift when I was like 19, 20 years old. I started picturing myself, or I started picturing what could go wrong instead of what could go right. And I knew that it was pretty much my time to back out of my sport.
Do you now then use that in your life of like anything you're going to approach? Like, okay, there's two ways to think about it. The ways it could go right and the ways it could go wrong.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you allow yourself to think about the ways that could go wrong, you'll not be able to do anything in life, anything at all. I mean, you can't eat cereal in the morning because that could end badly. So I truly have to approach like everything in life, be like, okay, this could be the greatest thing to happen in my life. Instead of thinking, oh, this could end miserably wrong.
I love that. Talk to me about the burnout that you had then, because like the intensity is just crazy.
So I started gymnastics when I was 2.5. I was just this little kid that had way too much energy, and I thought I could fly as a kid. So I put my teeth through my lip, I cracked my head open, I did all these things trying to actually fly.
Right.
So my parents put me in gymnastics and said it was like a padded playground that I could just be a kid at. But I had been training probably 40 hours a week for at least 6 years leading up to the Olympics. I mean, starting from when I was like 10.
That's crazy. So you've spent that much time, especially at that age, that must have been everything you identified with. So you go, you get the gold. I mean, you got 4 medals. Like, let's not forget about the silvers.
Yeah.
But then you stopped for 2 years.
Yep.
Can you talk to me about that and the decision behind that?
Yes. My dream outside of the Olympics, I wanted to do collegiate gymnastics. I also wanted to go to college. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. That was my dream in life. And I wanted to pursue this whole other life outside of being a gymnast. And as soon as the Olympics were done, my coach had taught me from day one that in order to be a gymnast and be successful, you have to have a heart and a passion for it. And I think that goes with everything in life. I think you have to truly have a passion to be successful. And for me, I knew at the Olympics that like my passion was kind of burnt out. I just knew that I looked forward to that finish line. And I kind of told myself, like, if I'm looking forward to a finish line, my passion must not be as strong as it once was. And as soon as the Olympics were over, I felt this freedom of, I crossed the finish line. I can take a break now. I don't have to go back to the gym. I don't have to worry about my nutrition plan. I don't have to have these stressors on me. I can focus on college, and I can focus on other things and a social life and being a 16-year-old kid. And it was just a weight that I needed lifted off of my shoulders for a while. And I was good with it, but 2 years goes by and it starts to come back.
How did you navigate that as well? Because I think whether it's, sports or other things people are approaching in life, it's like sometimes they worry like, oh my God, have I made the wrong decision? Like, how do I spend 6 years training for something and then step away from it? What if I regret it? Did any of that process, did you have to go through any of that process? And then when you started to feel like, oh, maybe I should go back to it, like talk me through that, the mindset behind that.
I have a lot of kids, especially in sports, ask me, like, when do I know it's the right time to quit or walk away? if you can truly ask yourself and internalize a question and say, do I love my sport more than anything in the world, that I would sacrifice hard days and family time and hobbies to be in that sport? If you can say no, then you've probably lost that passion. But for me, as soon as the Olympics were over, I knew my passion wasn't there because I had more interest in other things than I did in furthering and progressing in my sport. And 2 years later, when I started to feel this itch come back, I started to have more interest in gymnastics than those other things.
Okay.
And I think it's just like, at the end of the day, when you get bored, where does your heart lie?
Yeah.
Will kind of tell you what you're supposed to be in or not.
Yeah. Okay, so you've decided you're going to go back now.
Yes.
But then you get injured.
Yes. It was kind of an interesting situation for me because I tore my ACL. I did reconstructive knee surgery. I came back all the way to the sport. I made it all the way back to World Championships. And yes, it could have been a career-ending injury, but I had dealt with worse. In 2008, I competed on 2 fractured shins and could work through it. Like, the pain was there, but yet my passion and my drive was so much bigger that I could work through it and it'd be fine. But fast forward now to 2012, I needed to get another surgery, and I knew it, which it wasn't career-ending, but it was an issue. I had a torn rotator cuff, and I had a partially stress-fractured vertebrae.
Oh, is that all?
That's it. But again, comparing all of that to what I was going through in 2008, it was on par, if not just under, because it was all manageable things that I could do through physical therapy. But I told my coach, I said, for some reason, my mind can't block out the pain anymore.
Wow.
And the pain is being magnified in a way that I can't control it. And I kept telling him, I was like, there's something to be said for that. Like, my heart is telling me if I can't block that pain out anymore, then my drive must not be there. My mind can't get past it. And I think that's just showing me where my heart is lying. And because in a sport that is so dangerous, if your mind isn't on the proper thing, you usually see a lot more risk for injury.
Yeah.
And I, at 19 years old then, I just told my coach, I said, with my mind being on the pain and not being on my performance, I'm risking my body even more. And I think it's time that I just step back. And he was the greatest coach in the world. He was like, as long as you have conviction behind your decision, I support it 100%.
Yeah. So when you've made these changes, so much of your life has been about gymnastics. You know, you're identified as, you've been on Oprah and Ellen as like, you know, you won a gold medal, incredible. But then what's next? How do you emotionally make that shift? And then just like deal with your identity change, because I think so many people, especially women, where they go from, you know, whether it's like you're in a marriage and then you go to a divorce, right? The identity of being a married person to single, or you're professional and then not a professional. Talk me through that change, because I think it's so powerful.
Oh, absolutely. I think as women especially, we like to put purpose behind our name, and we like to very easily define ourselves as whatever it may be. So whether it's a wife, a daughter, a gymnast, we like to put a title to it because it gives us value and it gives us purpose. And for me, for so long, I was the gymnast. And people gave me respect. They gave me honor because I was a gymnast. And to go on all these shows, to sit with Oprah and have her say, Shawn Johnson, the gymnast, it was kind of like, oh, well, what do I do now? And I remember as soon as the Olympics were over in 2008, I always tell people I felt like I ran straight into a brick wall when I woke up the next morning, because I felt free because I no longer had to train and do all of that, but I also felt completely lost, because for 16 years, every decision I made on a daily basis was based around defining myself as a gymnast. What I ate, how I trained when I woke up, when I went to sleep, who I hung out with, how I talked, how I presented myself, what I wore. It was all in the image of the gymnast. And to have that now go away, I was like, okay, who am I as an individual? And I felt like I had to start over. I had a great community of people around me, but the transition is truly like a bad breakup. You just feel lost in life. And my family was really good at encouraging me to just try new hobbies and get out there and see where a passion would kind of spark. And I was lucky to have Dancing with the Stars contact me, and I went on that show, and that kind of gave me a few months to pause the decision of who I was as an individual, but it grew my confidence in a way that it allowed me to prove to myself I could be more than a gymnast. We do put so much weight on a title, and I just always tell people if you are transitioning, just try everything. Like, make new friends, put yourself in different communities, try new hobbies and activities, just to kind of replace what it was you were doing before.
Yeah. Do you feel like you had to mourn the loss of being a gymnast?
Oh, yeah. Just because that's who I was. Yeah. I mean, kind of like you were saying, if you're going through a divorce, you absolutely have to mourn the life you had. And you also have to celebrate the new life you're creating. But it's a really hard time. I mean, I remember standing on the Olympic podium after the beam competition, getting my last medal. And people always say, like, what does it feel like? And I tell them it's the most confusing feeling in the world, because you're crossing a finish line and you're so proud and you're so excited, but you're so sad and you're so scared for what's on the other side, because everything you know as an individual in person is in front of the finish line. But when you go past it, it's all new, and that's terrifying.
Yeah.
You're just starting over, and it's a crazy situation to be in, but it's also exciting.
Yeah. I desperately now want to talk about the things that you're doing, because I love the mindset that you've just laid out for being the athlete, but like you said, you're so much more than that. So talk to me. You're doing a lot of philanthropy work. You've written 2 incredible books where you're being very open and honest about the things that you've had to go through. How do you get the confidence to do that? And in fact, actually, let me back up. You wrote a blog.
Yes.
And you said there are basically 6 keys to building your confidence that you have to address.
Yeah.
And you said diet. Are you antisocial? Your hormonal imbalance, jealousy, new goals, and treating yourself. Tell me, which one do you think is the most important one of that for people out there, or for you to adopt, in order for you to build your confidence to go from being a gymnast to dancing to now what you do?
Oh my goodness. I would say kind of building on the antisocial.
Okay. I did not expect that one.
Yeah. 90% of your confidence has to come from within, but the other 10% comes from who you're around. And if you're around the wrong people, if you're putting yourself in situations where you're too insecure to put yourself in new situations, if you are reading blogs, if you are reading social media and letting that kind of seep in, it just kills confidence. And I feel like when I talk to young women and young girls who are struggling with self-confidence issues and eating disorders or whatever it may be, I always say the way I found a way out of it was to surround myself with people who cared about me and who could reinforce the things that my mind didn't want to tell me. And if you're antisocial, if you don't want to surround yourself with people who are telling you good things, it's just going to make your problems bigger.
Wow. And so that's what you did. So for people who may not know, you've spoken very openly about body image. And would you say you were anorexic, or?
I think I was kind of everything at one point. Being a gymnast, I tried being anorexic, which sounds strange to say, but I was a very muscular gymnast. I wasn't the Nastia Lukens of the world. And I lived in a time in gymnastics where judges favored more of a Nastia body. It was the first time in the sport where you started to see these really muscular gymnasts come to light, kind of like Simone Biles or Ali Raceman. We hadn't seen that in the sport before, and I was kind of the first one to break that way. And so I had so many people critiquing my body and saying, if you don't look like Nastia, then we're going to deduct, or it'll affect your performance. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a subjective sport. People are technically allowed to do that. And as a 16-year-old kid, I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have, the nutrition background. I didn't know how to look like Nastia but perform like me. And so I would try to eat less, and I would try to starve myself, and it never worked. And then I would try to work out more, and I would get tired or hurt myself, and that wouldn't work. And it was just this battle of trying desperately to fit a mold, but knowing that if I was just me, I was going to succeed a lot more.
Did you come to that acceptance during your competitions or after?
I struggled with it. I'd say I was like on the verge of eating disorders when I was in gymnastics, just because I had that perfectionism mindset. But I would regain confidence in my body and myself every time I competed and I won or did well. And so it would be easier to stand on a podium with a gold medal and say, oh, you keep telling me I need to change, but yet I'm wearing a gold medal. So I could kind of counteract those negative thoughts. I would say most of my bigger issues where I truly struggled came after gymnastics, when I lost my identity and had to start over, when I was on Dancing with the Stars in front of hundreds of millions of people and going through puberty and being a 16-year-old girl next to these beautiful, stunning women and being compared and seeing my body transition from an elite athlete to just a normal girl. I really struggled with how to balance that. And I kept saying, as long as I go back to looking like the Olympic girl, then maybe people will stop critiquing. And so I that's where most of my issues came in.
Yeah. How did you work through that? Because you want to talk about a subject that I'm sure every single woman, pretty much every single woman, has ever had to go through. How did you deal with that?
I fought it for a really long time. So I was kind of in denial for many years, just kind of fluctuating in weight and struggling with confidence and issues. And I remember I finally talked to a friend of mine who had gone through a lot of things, and she set me up with she's kind of like a therapist, but also a nutritionist.
Okay.
And I started talking to her every week and worked with her for years. And it was like little by little by little by little, I started to see improvements. Or we would be a year and a half out of our first kind of conversation, and she would say, do you remember the first day when you said this? Now look at where you are. And I just started to gain like little momentum and little steps of confidence that built over the years. People always look for a quick fix, but I say that's how everything starts.
Yeah. Everyone always looks for the quick fix.
There isn't one.
Yeah.
In anything.
Yeah. You've lived your life, oh my God. Talk about like always putting yourself out there to be criticized. I mean, like you were saying, right? You went from gymnastics to then Dancing with the Stars. Like, it's not like you hid.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
It is hard to not feel judged or to let the outside noise interfere from social media. And you're playing on such a big platform and a big stage. How do you block out that noise?
When I first was going through it, when Twitter first started and I first started reading all the comments or newspaper articles or blogs at the time, it was a lot harder to block it out. I would say if you're new to it, you have to find a community of people around you to help negate all of the bad comments. But for me now, I try to take a little different approach of every time I read a negative comment, instead of reading it as a personal attack, I always try to say, okay, that's someone who is scarred, who is lashing out. And I try to just think of that actual person, and instead of thinking they want to hurt me, I feel like they're actually just hurting inside.
Wow, you literally just gave me the chills. That's so true. What I love is that you don't stop.
right? It's like some people, it's like, you know, you put yourself out there, you allow yourself to be a bit vulnerable, and then something happens, and then all the walls come back up, the doors start closing because you don't like the feeling it gives you. But you keep pushing, like you lean into it more, I've noticed. And that brings me to, you do videos with your husband, Andrew, who's amazing. You guys are awesome together. And you did a video about your miscarriage.
Yes.
And like that's like next level vulnerable, because you guys weren't even just saying it in hindsight.
No.
You guys were like filming the entire process with the doctor as you're finding out these results. Like that's just like next level vulnerability. Tell me about that, and then how you just keep leaning into it.
So that was a crazy, crazy process. I found out I was pregnant back last October, and it was not something we were planning. It was a surprise. But because we were living kind of these influencer lifestyles and putting things on YouTube, I started filming the day I found out I was pregnant, not because I wanted to post it. Like, I never planned on posting it.
Oh.
It was 100% because my husband and I had already talked about someday when we have children, we want to document it for us. We want to be able to document it so we can look back and say, do you remember the day you found out you were pregnant? Do you remember the day that you told me? And so that's why I started filming. I wasn't filming for the world. I was filming just because it was this monumental event. And fast forward a week when I got to tell my husband, some issues started arising. I had stomach pains, and we weren't sure what it was, so we went to the hospital. Again, we asked to film, but again, we were hoping to expect good news and say, oh, no, the baby's still there, and it be part of our story that we can, again, look back on. And fast forward even more, I had miscarried. We were going through an emotional roller coaster, and I don't think a husband can ever truly wrap their mind around what it is a woman goes through, just because of the hormones and what we're, what we're going through internally. And Andrew was a godsend. He held my hand. He didn't try to fill space with words. He was just there. And he said, whatever you need to heal, just let me know. And I remember thinking, we have all this footage. And it was my idea. And I said, I want to post this. And he thought I was absolutely crazy. He's like, the emotional state you're in right now, I don't want to jeopardize anything or put you at risk for negativity that the world can bring. So I don't think that's a smart idea. And I just kept pushing it. I said, no, I really want to really want to post this. And I feel very convicted to do it. I don't know why. It was kind of a crazy move. And I remember posting it, and it was almost instantly. I mean, we were getting millions of views. We were #1 on trending. It was on the Today Show the next morning. And none of that mattered, but what I thought was fascinating was the thousands and thousands and thousands of comments that came back. Not a single one bad. And every single one was a woman or a husband or a father or a mother telling their story of miscarriage and telling their story of how they got through it. And it's exactly what I needed to heal. I think I was just in dire need of someone to help me, to know to tell me what to do, that I needed a community behind me, and I got it, and it was incredible.
And to maybe feel like you weren't alone because so many other people had gone through it, right?
Absolutely. You might never know it, but I'm a very, very shy and guarded person by nature. So even talking to my mom about it was hard. She would say, oh, honey, I'm so sorry, and she would be crying on the phone, and then my response would be like, I'm fine. I'm good. It's okay. Next time. And I needed someone who had been through it to say, this is normal. It's okay. And this is how you'll get through it. And we had millions of those, and it was incredible.
Yeah, yeah. The community that rallied behind that video is amazing. So I don't have kids. I've never had a miscarriage before. So I come from a certain perspective. And so when I was watching the video, it didn't even dawn on me until the doctor said to you, "Now this isn't your fault." And because I've never gone through it, it never dawned on me that people would blame themselves because I always hear, like, I know so many women that have had miscarriages that I just think of it as like human nature, right? But it never dawns on me. And he made it a point in the video to tell you that.
Yeah.
Did that occur to you?
So I was a lot like you up until that moment. So I kind of saw things black and white. I was like, oh, I knew people who had gone through miscarriages, but in my mind, I had never taken the route of, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, it's such a tragic loss. I always saw it as, that's just part of the natural order. That's how things happen. But as soon as it happened to me, it was shocking because I'm not a very emotional person in the sense of like placing blame and guilt on myself. I always try to look for like the logical reasons. And so the doctor was saying all these logical things, like it could be this or that or this. And then he made the point of it's not your fault. And I just started bawling. And I remember later on not talking to the doctor about it, but Andrew, and just saying, I feel like I failed as an individual. Because there is something, and again, I was never this like believer until then, but there is something that changes in a woman when you get pregnant. And it becomes this maternal instinct, which I thought was always just like a random thing people talked about and was cheesy, but it's real. But I had this maternal instinct to do whatever it took to take care of this human being. And when you're told as a mother that you've miscarried, instead of hearing the logic, I heard, like, you didn't take care of them well enough. And in a way, it almost, like, this sounds very harsh, but it almost feels like you've killed your child. And I remember thinking, like, straight doubt, straight guilt, straight fear, and having the doctor reiterate that was kind of like, I mean, you even saw it in the video. He makes a point to try to get it into my head of like, it's not you. And it took me a while to really believe that.
Yeah. What did you do to get there then?
I tried very hard, again, because I'm a very guarded person. I don't like to talk about my feelings much, which is very...
And here I am saying, tell me how you feel.
Which is very weird considering like we're here and I'm on YouTube and I share my feelings a lot now.
Which I appreciate, and I hope everyone's actually paying attention and listening, because people are going to dismiss you to say like, oh, it's easy for her. But I think it's important for people to hear that. And so thank you for sharing that.
Well, I mean, I think it's also how I was raised in the gymnastics community. Because as a kid, I was always taught, don't show emotion, don't show weakness, don't show the world what's going on inside. You are a machine and you always show strength. I learned very quickly how to turn off emotion and just go cold and say, I'm good, I'm fine, let's move on. I tried to make like a pact with myself from day one that I was going to be very open with my husband. And it was a lot for him. Again, it's like, I understand how hard it is for a husband or a father just because they don't go through it the same way. So I understood that it was very confusing to him, but just having him sit there and listen and being able to voice everything that I felt internally really helped me sort through my thoughts and my feelings and get past it. I think I'll always like hold part of it in my heart, but I think that's normal.
Yeah.
It's just another scar. But I've truly gotten to a point where I feel healed by it.
Yeah, that's great. So you have said, though, that you're not going to let what has happened stop you from trying again.
Yes.
That seems like so much of your personality and everything that you've done, that even if something goes wrong or something's bad, that you're not going to let that stop you. Is there any like moments in your life, though, that you feel like, oh, no, I shouldn't, because you failed or because something went wrong?
Oh, every day of my life.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like that's normal for any human to feel. I mean, the fear and doubt of failure can consume anyone's life on any given day. I mean, the fear of failure of getting on stage or the fear of failure of having a child. People want to naturally protect themselves from pain. And nobody wants to feel loss or failure or anything. So we always try to like bubble wrap ourselves so we never have to experience it. And because I have felt those things and because I know how bad they can hurt, but because I know I've gotten through all of it, I try not to bubble wrap myself. And I try to say, even in moments of fear, like, okay, the worst case scenario that can happen is this, but you've already survived it. So you might as well go for it again. And I would say I am a little more timid that way sometimes. It might take me longer to get to that point to try, but my husband is very good at pushing me past my comfort zone, which I love. I hate, but I love.
Yeah.
Because I think the most limiting factor in the world for anyone is holding yourself back because of fear. And it's the most natural thing in life, but it's something you can't allow yourself to act on.
Do you do like mantras or anything like that, or post-it notes, or?
My mom taught me from day one. She always just reminded me. She would say it when I was in the backseat of the car, crying because I didn't fit in with the popular kids or whatever. She would just say, honey, everything happens for a reason. Good, bad, or ugly, it happens for a reason. And I try to always tell myself, like, if you make mistakes, if you fail, if you succeed, you are supposed to, and you need to learn from it because it all is supposed to happen. And I don't know, I don't want to waste a moment. So
What I love is that does change your perspective, just how you're looking at a situation, right? Because so many people say like the why me, or, you know, I used to all the time, like why me, the victim mentality. But if you just reframe it and say if it happens for a reason, it allows you to go, but then what is the reason?
exactly. A very popular question that people always like to ask you is like, do you have any regrets? Or what is your biggest regret in your career?
Right.
And I very quickly tried to like coin the phrase to myself that I don't believe in regrets because everything happens for a reason. I mean, if I bombed on the Olympic stage, if I fell on my face in every competition, I wouldn't regret that because that would have been a life lesson I had to have learned from.
I read this Einstein quote actually where someone, not Einstein, it was Edison, and someone asked him like, you know, basically, how do you feel about your, 1,000 mistakes that you've made to get to the light bulb? And he's like, they weren't mistakes, they were steps.
Exactly. I mean, especially in gymnastics, I always say gymnastics is the most humbling sport because you literally have to fall on your face or split the beam or break ribs or whatever before you succeed. And I think that was the greatest lesson to learn as a kid, that you have to fall. You have to fall flat on your face before you can ever make it to the Olympic stage. And I don't think there's many other sports that teach you that, but I think it's a great life lesson for a kid to have because it shows you and proves to you as a child that it's okay to fail. And a different way to look at it is like there's no such thing as failure because it leads to success. So.
I love that. Well, speaking of success, it seems like that you and your husband just like have a beautiful relationship. And that's not to say that you guys don't work hard at it.
Thank you.
I'm sure
we
you
do.
really, exactly. Talk to me about your relationship with him, because in one of your videos you said you guys were like giggling about something and you're like, we'll watch this video when we're in our rocking chairs and we're really old and we're gonna laugh at it. I love that you guys have that vision of like, this is going to be for life. What do you think are some key things that you have to do in your relationship in order for you to get to that point where you're in your rocking chair in your 80s?
I would say for us, we have an agreed upon mindset with our relationship that we agreed very early on that we are going to fight through it. We are never going to turn our backs. We're never going to say, I don't want to fight with you right now. This isn't the moment or place. We're going to fight through it because we love each other enough to do it. The rocking chair comment, we were laughing at it because we had just gotten in a huge argument and we still had to film that day. And we were so salty towards each other. And we said, we're going to look back when we're in our rocking chairs and laugh at this moment because we fought through it. We loved through it, and we're now on the other side just laughing. But I think my biggest advice to any relationship is relationships are not easy. No good relationship is easy, and I think people expect them to be. But if you go into a relationship saying, this is going to be the hardest thing you do in your life, and you expect that, then it'll be the greatest thing you do in your life. So
That's awesome. And your communication with each other as well is very on point.
yeah, we always say we're transparent, probably too far. But the one rule we made when we started dating was full transparency. Like if you are feeling doubt in the relationship or fear, like some of the ugliest thoughts that people are afraid to share, we want to share them because we want to know each other's mindset. We want to know what they're feeling. We want to know, like I wanted to know on our wedding day that we both felt nervous. Like I think that's normal. I wanted to know I wasn't the only one saying, am I sure I'm marrying the right person? Which he felt the same way. We just try to be very open with each other, and I think it helps our relationship.
Well, how do you think it helps?
I think it helps because I feel like for us, or for me in particular, and as women, I feel like our minds run, and we always try to paint pictures and fill in gaps, and I feel like that kind of very easily can lead us astray. I feel like when I'm constantly trying to figure out what he's thinking, I'm thinking something completely worse or wrong, which is women. So I feel like with being transparent, the more I know about him, the more I know good, bad, and ugly, the more I know what he's thinking, the less room it leaves for me to interpret. And it makes me love him even more because we're both just so human and things aren't perfect, and I just love that about us.
Yeah, I love that so much. I could talk to you for hours, my dear. Where can people find you online? What's coming up? How can we get these guys to dig in?
Yeah. So we have our YouTube channel, which is just Sean Johnson, and we post everything from like love stories and like relationship series to house hunting and how you do that and all random things. Instagram is Sean Johnson, across social platforms at Sean Johnson, and my husband is Andrew East. Yeah.
Awesome. And my final question, what is your superpower that you consider yourself to have?
My superpower. I'd say my superpower is probably, even when I'm terrified of things, I try to still go for it. And I have been literally dripping sweat, like shaking in my boots to do things before, but I'll still do it.
That's amazing. Guys, this woman is literally, I wore this shirt in fact, especially for her, because she is like Wonder Woman to me, and she said it in this interview especially, that she would break bones because as a kid she actually thought she could fly. And that's not surprising though, because if you actually like, in sitting with her and talking to her, the mindset that she has is that she can do anything, she can accomplish anything that she puts her mind to. And to me, that is what being your own superhero is. It's about setting a goal, having a vision, and going out there and going for it. And so when I asked her what her superpower is, and it's to go for it, it was no surprise to me, because that's what she's embodied throughout her entire life and career. So guys, please, if you take one thing away from this episode, it is that you need to go out and go for it. Before you do that, subscribe, press that little click button down there. Follow me at Lisa Bilyeu. And guys, until next time, go be the hero of your own life. Peace out.
What up guys, Lisa here. Thanks so much for watching this episode. And if you haven't already subscribed, click that little button right in front of you. Click, click, click away. We release episodes every Wednesday, so be sure to get notified. Till next time, go be the hero of your own life.